5 SUVs from this segment cost almost the same to buy. 7 years later, one of these costs 5 lakh more to own. And it isn't the car that everyone expects. Today, we're mapping out the 7-year ownership cost curve across different engine types like hybrids, turbo petrols, diesels, petrols and CNGs using the same usage, same loan and same city. This isn't about features, it is about financial structure. Let's see how these curves behave over time. To compare fairly, we first need to define what ownership actually includes. So, here are some of the constants that I have assumed for this financial model. First thing that I have assumed here is the annual running in kilometers. I have taken this as 12,000 kilometers. The second constant that I have assumed here are the fuel prices. I have taken petrol as 103 rupees, diesel as 91 rupees and CNG as 89 rupees per litre. Financing. Here I have assumed the loan years to be 5, the interest rate to be 9% and the ownership years as 7, which means you will be selling your car after 7 years. Point number 4. Service and repair line items. Now I have assumed the cost for these items as follows. For suspension, I have allocated 30,000. For clutch, it's 15,000. For AC, it is 15,000 and for battery, it is 5,500. Finally, warranty and depreciation. The first 2 years are covered under warranty and I have created depreciation checkpoints at years 3, 5 and 7 which the model shows. Please note that this is a financial model and not a detailed showroom brochure analysis. To keep the graphs clean and unbiased, I have encoded each model and each engine type as follows. First, the car names. C stands for Hyundai Creta, GV for Maruti Grand Vitara, H for Toyota Hyryder, S for Kia Seltos and V for Maruti Victoris. Now, engine types. T for turbo petrol, D for diesel, H for hybrid, NA for NA petrol and C for CNG. So, for example, a CD encoding means it is a Creta diesel. I have done this so that we can focus more on the analysis and not on brand perception. The first 2 years of ownership create a financial comfort illusion. This is because the warranty reduces mechanical risk in years 0 to 2 and also covers the service costs for the first year. The primary cost drivers here are EMI, fuel and higher first year insurance. Let's see how the different cars compare. On an average, the EMI in years 0 to 2 is about 7,24,000. The average fuel cost is 6,36,000. The average insurance is 72,000 and the average service cost is about 8,600. Now, when we look at this graph, we see that Creta turbo petrol is the most expensive car and owning this amounts up to 11,40,000 in the first 2 years, while the lowest ownership cost is of the Maruti Victoris NA engine. This proves that NA engines are way cheaper to maintain than the punchy turbo petrols tuned for performance. So all in all, the first 2 years feel very stable because the warranty is active, which indicates a lower mechanical risk, and the structural costs are still building quietly. Phase 2, years 3 to 5. This is called the transition phase because the warranty has expired and depreciation steps in. Overall, fuel and service costs begin to dominate. The EMI will end at year 5 because you have taken a loan with a tenure of 5 years. Now, looking at this graph, the average EMI in this phase is about 11 lakhs. The average fuel cost is 1,64,000. The average service cost, which is rising, is about 30,000 and the average insurance cost, which is reduced, is about 47,000. Overall, when you look at this graph, you can see that the share of the red that represents the fuel cost has increased in each bar, and the share of the brown that represents the insurance cost has reduced in each bar. Overall, you can also observe that the turbo petrols and hybrids are much more expensive to own than the naturally aspirated petrols or the CNGs. Finally, by year 5, the cars start showing their true financial colors because the combined effect of depreciation and cumulative costs of fuel determines the total ownership costs. Phase 3, year 6 to 7. This is called the risk window. Owning a car after year 5 becomes a game of probability because the mechanical exposure increases. It becomes highly probable that you will have to get replacements for the suspension, the clutch or the transmission, the AC and electrical systems, and the battery. So, as I mentioned in the beginning of the video, clutch costs about 15,000, AC 15,000, suspension 30,000 and battery replacement 5,500, and these costs totally add up about 65,500 to the total cost of ownership. The unpredictability factor here increases. This is where the mechanical parts start to show their financial consequences. Now it's time to see where all the money is going. This is the total 7-year cost curve that you've all been waiting for since the beginning of the video. So, looking at this graph, you lose a lot of money because of depreciation. And the second biggest cost for you are the fuel plus maintenance and the interest that you pay on your loan. The stark contrast you see when you look at this graph for the first time is the Creta Turbo Petrol, for which you have to spend about 29 lakhs to own over 7 years. You can see that the Turbo Petrol of the Seltos is way cheaper here because it is offered from the lower variants, and I have considered the prices of the base variant for each model. Then you have the NA petrols and the CNGs, which cost the lowest to own. So owning a Grand Vitara CNG or a Victoris CNG amounts to about rupees 19 lakhs over 7 years, which saves you a lot of money. This ranking reflects the dataset totals, and the differences are driven primarily by depreciation and the cumulative fuel and interest rates for petrol versus hybrid variants. So the real cost here isn't about what you refill, but it's about what you lose in the form of depreciation. Now let's look at an executive summary of the key insights we derived during this data analysis. The first insight is that CNG is the cheapest cost curve consistently. This indicates that the lesser you spend on fuel today, the more you save long term. The second insight is that the NA petrol and diesel sit in the middle. They give quite a good efficiency and are also moderately priced in terms of repairs and service costs. The final insight is that the turbo petrol and hybrids are the most expensive. This is because the turbo petrol gives you a lower fuel efficiency, which in turn increases fuel costs, and the hybrid is a new technology which is quite complex when it comes to repairs. So the cheapest car isn't determined at the time of purchase, it is determined over the years. Thank you.